Hello and a warm welcome to the Open Treasury podcast, your go-to source for the latest news and analysis in corporate cash and treasury management. This show is brought to you by CTMfile.com and the Treasury News Network, where treasury professionals learn and share the information that matters most. I am your host, Pushpendra Mehta, executive writer at CTMfile. Joining me today is Jack Large, editor of CTMfile. Welcome back to the Open Treasury podcast, Jack.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. I am excited to have the opportunity to converse with you again. This week, we are focusing on 6 themes, namely the global economy, cybersecurity, real-time data, treasury technology, central bank digital currency, and finally, cryptocurrency. You can read these articles and also research content more deeply by visiting ctmfile.com or by following the links in our show notes. Our first theme for today is the global economy. A recent Citi Global Wealth Investments report has predicted the weakest annual global economic growth in 40 years outside of the global financial crisis and pandemic shutdowns. The report reveals that a mild US recession could occur, but this is expected to impact areas such as the Eurozone more heavily. However, the report does argue that if the Fed does not pause rate hikes until it sees the contraction, a deeper recession could be seen in the US. CGWI, or Citi Global Wealth Investments, also reckons that Asia could avoid recession in 2023. Do you concur with the findings of the report?
The last comment about the Far East, Asia escaping the world recession, I don't believe that. I think it's a global problem, and it's following the pandemic, which produced strains anyway, and now we're getting additional strains from slowing economies, from the war in Ukraine, the reaction in Brazil and so on to other pressures and fighting within the political party there. I don't think there's any chance of not being a global recession. I don't think any region is going to escape.
No region is going to escape. But do you think the Citi report says that they think that the annual global economic growth would be the weakest in 40 years? What do you make of that?
Oh, I concur entirely. I think that we're hitting unprecedented conditions and environment. And the other thing that I didn't mention was that the global climate crisis is going to get worse, significantly worse, I feel, in 2023. And that's going to have another impact on investment and caution and so on. I see no way of escaping it. And also the other thing that is coming through from a US economist, and I can't say his name right, something Glitz, is that the raising the interest rates is not actually a good way to counteract inflation. It's actually inflationary itself. The theory has long been rubbished, and now we're seeing the consequence of it. But the central banks are not going, and the Fed and the Bank of England, for example, are not going to go away from that approach. So I think that's going to deepen the recession.
Deepen the recession, and a word of caution about climate change, Jack. There could be another word of caution, and I wish to seek your opinion about the second story for today, which pertains to new data from the 2022 Cybersecurity Insights report from global intelligence and cyber consulting firm SRM that has found that cybersecurity budgets are set to increase on average of only 11% over the next 24 to 36 months. With high levels of inflation, this means the UK or British-based organizations will effectively be facing cuts to their cybersecurity budgets through 2025. Jack, If you were a corporate treasurer with exposure to the UK, would you be concerned that organizations in the UK may cut their cybersecurity budgets over the next 24 to 36 months?
I would be concerned. I think it's inevitable. And what was interesting is they distinguished between the small companies, the SMEs, and the larger global companies, where in the larger global companies, mostly they have got much better infrastructure, cybersecurity infrastructure. In the smaller companies, they don't have. We're seeing a bigger increase from the smaller companies. Okay, not enough, and even and less from the large companies. I think cybersecurity is a general problem. It isn't specific to the UK. I think we're going to see this all over the place, and new forms of cybersecurity problems are going to become manifest. The programmers haven't stopped working. If I was a corporate treasurer today, I would ask for an increase, even though I was in a global company, say the general approach has to be to increase our spending. And there are always places where you can improve your cybersecurity, not only by training, but technology and new agreements, new supply chain agreements, and so on. There are lots of opportunities for improving or reducing cybersecurity.
You make some very important and pertinent points, and I hope corporate treasurers and young treasury professionals are listening to your remarks carefully. Moving forward, the next story is about the Euro Banking Association, which has published a report on the use of real-time data in corporate liquidity management. This is the sixth in a series on the relationship between corporate clients and banks in the liquidity management ecosystem, published by the EBA group or the EBA working group. The objective of this paper is to provide insight into how companies already use real-time data in the liquidity management space and where they could potentially benefit from real-time data access. As the name implies, real-time data is data that's instantly available. Jack, what, in your experience, what do you think are the most important benefits of real-time data for corporate treasury?
The problem is that there are benefits. The problem is you have to be able to take advantage of them. And that's the issue internally in the AP systems, the collection systems, the security systems. Real-time data means you have to be able to react. Otherwise, it's useless. It's not taken advantage of. And the classic example of real-time data issues is, what about a payment that arrives midday on a Saturday and it could be sitting in your ledger for 2 days before you make use of it? That's the issue. It's the making the working practices and the technology work together. And that's the issue I see. Okay, ISO 20022 is a good technology, it's a good framework and so on, but unless you've got the backup procedures and approaches, you're not going to make much from it. The EBA keeps on going on about it from a banking point of view. What I don't see enough of is how corporates internally within their systems, within their groups, use the real-time data. It requires a sea change in thought processes and quite often systems as well. I'm not sure many companies are ready for this, really, which is a shame.
And I hope they do, as we get ready for the new year. The next theme for today is Treasury Technology, where Marqeta, a US-based global card issuing platform powered by open APIs, have partnered with MasterCard to integrate with its Track Instant Pay, a next-generation virtual card tool that utilizes machine learning and straight-through processing, enabling immediate payment of supplier invoices. Marketa's US-based clients will reportedly be able to approve payments to their suppliers instantly after receipt of invoices, providing more time to focus on their business goals. Jack, how do you think Marketa integrating with MasterCard's Track Instant Pay solution will help corporate treasury?
It might, if the companies can take advantage of the way the system processes. Getting approval of an invoice in the middle of the weekend is fine, but can you take advantage of it? Can you use the data? Can you use the cash flow that this could generate, or the cost savings? What we're seeing now is a change in the way technology is viewed, and this sort of linking of a real-time payment system, which MasterCard have done very neatly, and it works, I understand from various users. The issue for corporates is, how do you make use of this? How do you employ this internally? And this is what increasingly we're not seeing addressed enough. What I would like, for example, within this is Marketa partnering with MasterCard with a good new payment system, but they also need to be partnering with internal systems, TMS systems and SAP systems and so on to make the whole thing integrated. You only get results if you integrate all the processes. That's where you get the real return.
So the underlying message is integrate all your processes.
Yeah.
The fifth story that merits discussion for today revolves around central bank digital currency. In an effort to advance its cashless Nigeria policy and promote the use of the e-Naira, Nigeria's central bank's digital currency, the country has drastically reduced the amount of cash that individuals and businesses can withdraw. Adoption rates for the e-Naira have been low since its launch on 25th October 2021. The CBN has found it difficult to persuade Nigerians to use the CBDC, with less than 0.5% of the population reported having used the e-Naira in the 12 months from its launch. Jennifer Lasseter, the executive director of the Digital Dollar Project, in a recent interview published on CTMfile.com, has said that some countries are deprioritizing privacy and security to be among the first to develop and issue a central bank digital currency. She further added that we hypothesize this has resulted in a lack of meaningful adoption of these early CBDCs, a pitfall the US must avoid should they decide to issue a CBDC. Jack, do you think the adoption rates for the CBDC in Nigeria may be because of privacy and security concerns that its citizens may face or may have, or it could be because getting people to change ingrained habits isn't easy?
In my opinion, it's undoubtedly the latter. It's getting people to change habits. The crude attempts by the Nigerian central bank to restrict cash coming out of ATMs. They're talking about reissuing some notes, so it means that some of the older notes will lose their value. The problem is we're also seeing that concept of losing value being talked about in some of the central bank currencies as well. Central banks really cannot assume that this will be taken up fast. If you look at China, they've had a similarly slow growth of the use of their CBDC. And Nigeria is the next example. Cash is inherent part of society, and cash is system independent. It's not dependent on technology. It is notes and coins far outlast the modern technologies. I think Nigeria is going to regret this. I think Jennifer is absolutely right about the worries about privacy and security, but the real worry is changing habits, and that just takes a long time. I'm surprised the Nigerians have reacted like this, but it's it's not useful. And I would, for example, if I was a corporate treasurer, start to, in my sales operations, my retail operations, accept CBDCs just to dip the toe in the water and see what it's like, who's using it, who isn't, and so on. But to expect a rapid change in behaviour isn't going to happen anytime soon. It's going to be years. Fascinating, but relatively unimportant. Need to prepare for it, but don't expect too much.
Need to prepare for it, but don't expect too much. That is a very useful thought to ponder and to implement. The next story is about Goldman Sachs planning to spend tens of millions buying or investing in cryptocurrency-related initiatives, as has been reported by Reuters, amidst the collapse of the FTX exchange. Standard Chartered, on the other hand, forecasts a further crypto retreat in 2023 and has predicted that Bitcoin could fall as far as US $5,000 in 2023. Jack, my question to you is, on one hand, Goldman has a good feeling about crypto. On the other hand, you have Standard Chartered who doesn't. What would you advise CEOs, CFOs, and corporate treasurers when it came to cryptocurrency?
Caution. Absolute caution. But you have to understand the scale of the opportunity. I mean, I remember talking to guys who bought Bitcoins at $10 each, not 10,000, but $10. Right. It's one of the opportunities of investment I missed, amongst many others. But if you're Goldman, a bank that is trying to get into the transactional side of banking, inevitably you have to get into crypto. But it doesn't mean you have to overinvest. You have to position it in such a way that you can do it slowly and with concrete progress, and rather than go put all your money in FTX and then a year later you've lost all your money. It's caution, again, is what's required here. I agree with the Standard Chartered forecast. It's not the only forecast like this saying that cryptos is going to decline in 2023, but that's part of a more global recession. But technologically, you can't not get into crypto. It's just how. And even for corporate treasurers who are not investment bankers or bankers, they still have to get into crypto because it's going to be a currency that is going to be used. And so dipping the toe in the water, I think, is important, but don't overinvest.
Jack, finally, I would like to wrap up this conversation by seeking your thoughts or opinion on your choice for the biggest or most important story of the past week and why.
It is the one by Citibank on the global economy. I feel there's no way out of the recession that's coming. It's just, how do you manage it? How, as a corporate, do you manage the recession? What do you cut back on and what do you spend more on? For example, I would spend more on cyber security systems rather than other systems that are related to straight transaction. It's being more cautious and investing only in the things that are going to make an immediate impact.
Thank you, Jack, for your invaluable analysis and insights. We would also like to thank our CTMfile audience for joining us on this edition of Open Treasury. Please subscribe and look in the show notes for the article links. Thank you. This podcast is provided for information purposes only, and statements made by CTMfile or guests on this podcast are not intended as legal, business, or consulting advice. For more information, visit ctmfile.com.